Hey, Jacoba. Welcome to the
Hi.
Conscious Innovation podcast. I'm really looking forward to our talk today. We go way back. I think it's 20, maybe even 25 years since we worked together when we were both working for ING Global Infrastructure. And we worked on People Finder and LDAP, and I'm sure we'll touch on that a little bit. And you back then were already full in the tech side of identity and access management, and it was really interesting that I ran into you a couple of weeks ago, or even a couple of months ago by now, but at an event, and I think we haven't seen each other. I don't know, in years, and it was like we had not. It was like yesterday, the day that we met. So right, so it was so fun to see each other again and talking. And so I thought, if there's a guest I would like to invite for the podcast, it's definitely you because it's going to be a fun conversation. Um, Maybe could just sort of ask you so people know and get to know you a bit. So what did you do for as a profession? What is your profession called? And how did you end up in this topic?
Yeah, well, that's a long story, and I'll try to keep it short. My profession is called, I'm an expert in the topic of identity and access management, for short, IAM, identity and
Yeah.
access management. And that's the topic that is about everything on access to digital systems. So it means who is going to access it, your digital identity, your digital account, or whatever.
Uh-huh.
What are you accessing? What tools and systems and transactions are you going to, and what are you allowed to do that? That's the authorizations. What
Hmm.
entitlements do you have? And the third one is, how do you prove that it's you? That's the, now often we know, password and credential sets, but also biometrics and
Mm.
everything. That's the authentication. So there's three things. And if you manage that in a large organization like the ING group, like I did, you have to do this for about 20,000 employees, maybe millions of customers, and about
Yeah.
5 to 6,000 different applications and hundreds of servers. So, and every system and every process and every user is touched because they all have to do something in order to get inside of those digital stuff, this digital stuff. So
Yeah.
that's my profession, and I've done that indeed all my life, which is my
Right.
digital
Yeah.
life, I have to say, which is 25 years. Before that, I studied Latin and Greek, so I like small caps and reading and speak my languages, and that's how I ended up in this topic. I
Mm.
had a second education being introduced to Oracle databases and all that. So then I was ready to go to Capgemini, and they sent me to ING Group to go around the world and gather all the employee
Oh.
data from 80 data sources because they needed an email backbone, and email always involves your first name, second name. So I had to go to
Yeah.
every HR head I could find around the globe and ask them, can I use your employee data, put it all together so we have an email backbone? And that's where the whole topic started. Actually, the accounts and
Wow.
identities. And
Yeah.
I stayed with the topic all the time. So I evolved while the topic evolved as well. It didn't have its own name by then because it was
Mm.
really the baby steps, for that. But then it turned into a whole security stuff, and I never left the topic. So
Yeah.
that's how I ended up in this field.
I have lots of questions, but just start talking about access. I understood you're in the middle of Burgundy in like remote in a remote area, and the access to the internet is not fantastic there, which is kind of nice when talking about technology. It's always the technology that gives us hiccups. So funny also to see that with you that also happens
Yeah.
with the images a little bit, but it looks like the audio is fine. So from time to time you're a bit in a mist, but hey, that's also fine. So. Um, it's so funny when you said that, like these large numbers of people, accounts, and because if you work in a company, you just take that as a given. It's like you don't realize that is behind, just a simple thing as sending emails, right? So that brings me back. So has the profession changed a lot over the years, or is it still the same questions and issues?
No, well, a number of questions and issues always remain the same because it's
Mm.
always still very complex, and governments and boards and people who manage it, manage the budgets, they have no idea what's all under the hood and how wildly complex it is. It's grown
Yeah.
more and more complex over time, actually, because if you look at large corporates, how they manage this, they just add on extra layers and they want this and this nice feature. And now we want biometrics. Now we're going to want to get rid of the password. But it all adds technology, and often these are point solutions. So the landscape in architecture within a
Right.
company becomes more and more complex. And often it's very
Yeah.
difficult to get rid of the old stuff, which probably still works quite well. And that's then you need people like me who can look at this architecture and see, okay, this is what we have to do to simplify it, because making it more simple is always that's almost always the topic that is required, because the more tools you have, the more you need to maintain and to pay for
Yeah.
licenses and things, and the more can
That
go wrong
reminds
as
me of that
well.
kind of joke. Yeah, of the kind of joke when people say, if I had more time, I would have written you a shorter letter. It's like
Exactly.
yeah,
That's a
just
very
actually,
nice comparison. Yeah.
yeah. So the complexity, it's interesting because it's so hidden for like the average eye, and you just assume things work.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to then explain how difficult it is before you go into really a lot of
Yeah.
details and technology,
And
right? So,
that's something
you also
generic
mentioned,
in security.
yeah,
If you do security, cybersecurity, if you do it really well, no one notices anything. No incidents, no friction, nothing.
yeah,
So that's a great job. The best you can do is nothing happens. So it's also sometimes very
yeah.
difficult to explain that it's really important and how we need it, because people don't notice.
It's a bit of a feminine aspect, right? We prevent things rather than
Yeah.
let it happen and then
Yeah.
fix it after. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that's how I recognize the invisibility of these things. You mentioned something about I think it was identity management, like knowing that it's actually you. I was wondering, I mean, with everything going on in AI, where it starts to become more and more possible to fake someone, just sort of you actually think you got an email from the CEO. It sounds like the person, it maybe even looks like the person. So is that something you encounter in your work, or is that just a completely different aspect of
No, it really
identity?
has to do with that. It can be weaponized and can be used for the eternal good and the eternal bad, which is in
Yeah,
generic feature of everything that you automate. And in identity and access control, we've already done a lot of things to automate certain processes. One of the things we have to do is to check if all the accounts are still ready, and you could do that by a robot internally. So it takes a lot of spreadsheet comparisons away and all the tedious jobs that you have to do. But in general,
yeah,
if I look at it, it's not, we think about identity and access control of managing the front door, the access. So if people have
yeah,
no rights and no passwords and they have only their identity, they still can't do anything. So there is a concept, we call it zero trust. Don't hand out any entitlements and authorizations up until the moment someone really needs it, just in time. So even if they hack his password or his identity, there wouldn't be any access rights
yeah.
into the system. So with that passport, he can't do anything. And that's one thing.
Right.
So you can change your architecture for that. You can, for instance, your network, which is underlying and connecting everything. If you split that into various zones and you pose your most critical assets into a ring-fenced area of your network, that's already one way to, whenever someone hacks or gets into
Yeah.
your system, he can't move laterally. But another thing is what we call defense in depth. It's not just the preventative control, which is the identity and access front door, but also to detect
Yeah.
when someone enters, detection, secondary detective control. And then there is, of course, resilience and preparation in case something happens and you are being hacked. You should have everything prepared. So
Yeah.
either have your backups ready, know exactly who should do what, have your governance ready, who should be warned, how should they act, where are our dangerous assets, the most endangered assets, and how to react if really the whole problem gets worse. So also press
Yeah.
releases and things, and talk to your communications department. And I've experienced this in my own experience when they thought that someone was going to present a hack on our banking e-reader that you read your card with, connected to
Oh
your
yes.
laptop.
Yeah.
and they were going to talk about that, how they broke it, and they were going to show that at a big hacker conference just a few days after Christmas, when of course the whole team, everyone would be at home. But we had seen that in the program, and one of my team was going there anyway, so he was in the room when that was happening. We were live following the feed, and actually nothing happened, but we'd already lined up all the text in preparation for the global communications department. Right. And we were all at home following what happened, and nothing happened. It was a known error that couldn't do any harm. But still, this is an example that defense in depth involves. It's not just making sure that the disaster gets contained, but also communications and so. And it's a lot wider than you might expect. And I think a good crisis, when really something goes wrong or is being hacked, that's always very welcome, because it makes everyone aware about the importance. And we always say, never waste a good crisis for everywhere and everyone to be prepared for the next one.
Because this is things you don't really think about, but and also maybe I'm just a bit naive living in the Netherlands. Things seem to be all rosy and nothing happens, or at least it doesn't really get to the news. But with the changes in geopolitics at the moment, I understood. I think it was this week or last week. I think it was a prosecutor from the International Criminal Court got sort of freezed out of their accounts, I think at Microsoft, and there's some ideas behind it that this came from the Americans because they weren't happy with where the prosecution was going. I don't know, you know the story? Because of course I'm really good at telling the story half. So
this is exactly
you used to think it came from one specific area, but it seems to come worldwide now.
There is. I went to the European Identity and Cloud Conference in Berlin, which is the largest one in Europe. And it's been organized for the past 20 years or so. And I meet everyone who is important in identity, digital identity and access. They're all there. So that's about the vendors, but also the academia and people in practical jobs. And for all the large corporates, all the heads of identity, they're all there. So for me, that's a big reunion party, and I love it. But there were three topics which were really more important there. And the first one was AI. How does it threaten us, and how does it benefit us, and what to do about that? The second one was European sovereignty from big tech, and how everyone, including a group of CISOs that I meet every 3 months, that's the Cybersecurity Council of Copenhagen, of that conference. And we are a group of 26 CISOs, and I'm a member of that, although I'm not a CISO, but I'm a sort of member of honor, I don't know. But anyway, it's very interesting, and we always look at the market and what's happening and what's going wrong and everywhere. And this was really one of the topics we discussed, and we had a whole panel about it also in the conference. What do you do? How do you move away from American big tech? Because even if nothing goes wrong, there is a chance that someone is going to use it as a sort of blackmailing or bribery or whatever means, and it's a threat. And if you look at the Netherlands, we are fully 90% Microsoft oriented, and then there's of course the cloud, whichever is there, and there's jurisdictions, even American cloud owned by an American company under American jurisdiction, but located in Europe could be a problem. So, and then of course we have Chinese hacking efforts and state attackers, and so this was a very big item there during the conference. Well, the third item there was the European Digital Identity Wallet, but that's for further down the interview, I suppose.
I'm sure we'll talk. I'm just typing it down just to not forget it. So to start with the big topic, one of the big topics that were just about that threat with the IC, the International Criminal Court person. I'm hoping with all those smart brains there in Berlin, do you have answers, or is this just something that you know what you need to do and people just need to do it in the companies, or is there something we still have to worry about?
Well, I think we still have to worry about it because it's very impossible and unlikely that we can move away from those providers really quickly. We could prepare for that, but we don't have European initiatives, alternatives for every sorts of services that we use, and it's all around.
Yeah.
It's not just applications, but it's also the cloud and the hosting and everything. So
Yeah.
I think it would take time to prepare for that, but there are European initiatives looking into this, and
Yeah.
we're looking at the Dutch cloud as well, and there are some European cloud initiatives, but they should be boosted. And problem is also the skilled people that in order to do this very quickly, you need a lot of professionals, and there's a skill gap in cybersecurity as a whole. So I don't see that solved very quickly.
Yeah. It's interesting that these clouds and in the past when we're going like more global, and it didn't matter where it was, and it seems to be we're getting back to your own sort of geographies and putting a fence around it. And um, interesting. Is that also what you see, or is it still sort of geography, or is this more government versus corporate? Because that's also I'm kind of curious.
No,
Because
it's more. No, I think those are working more together, but it's more jurisdictions. So the legal
right.
jurisdiction to make sure that you're in your own jurisdiction, and that could be country or that could be servers under your jurisdiction. So that's quite important.
Ah, interesting. So when it comes to the AI threats and benefits, was there anything that was new for you, or I'm assuming you just know everything already, or but maybe let me
Well,
rephrase this. Anything is worth
I'm an
sharing?
identity and
Yeah.
access management expert, but you see that there are new small companies leveraging AI for making the identity and access control more easy, and they have various things into, of course, customer care and bots and everything. That's not really new, but in search of like automated discovery and threat detection, discovery and pattern recognition and machine learning. There are a lot of things that, well, I wouldn't call it all intelligence, but there is a lot going on in order to automate a lot of the processes and detective controls. So
Yeah.
fraud detection is often based on pattern recognition. If you see someone using a totally different device and have different typing speed and different behavior, on your telephone, behavior of your typing and your navigating, these are all patterns. And of course, if
Yeah.
you automate the pattern recognition, it's far easier and quicker. But that's already an automated process, but that can be leveraged and it can work faster. But it would also need lots of data, of course, to be used.
Yeah.
So there's always the triangle of usability, keeping the friction away, security, making the friction as high as possible for those bad guys, and then at the same
Yeah.
time, privacy, not using all that data for those purposes. So that's always a
Interesting
balancing act,
triangle.
and AI makes it more difficult.
Yeah. Okay. And so the next level I'm hearing also is quantum, and I've heard like this thing where the quantum encryption at the moment. I think this is not what I know enough of, but what I understand is like encryption is like what 13 hashes or something, and now with quantum that will just hack it. Is that in Dutch we
Yeah.
say broodje aap? Is that
No,
sort of
that's also top of mind. I think in 2020, when I was at a conference in Leuven, there's one professor who's really the crypto guy in Brunel, and I think he predicted that in 2025 that quantum cryptography would be or quantum computing would be a reality, and in certain cases, certain sorts of things can already be done. But
yeah.
the thing about cryptography, it's a puzzle, and it takes millions of tries in order to find the outcome. But when your
Yeah.
computer is so fast, it can do all those millions of tries so well and so fast that the outcome is found and of that puzzle, and that's
Ah.
without having the key. And I think that's essentially what it's about. But
Ah.
they already have quantum resistant cryptography that's already in development, and but in order to it's not a problem that we can't do it yet, but the thing is that it's not implemented anywhere yet. To have, if you
Yeah,
imagine a bank with all its 3,000 applications and all using this cryptography and public key infrastructure stuff, and it all has to be converted. I think that's the big challenge, to make
yeah,
everything quantum resistant, to really implement all your systems in this way, because a lot of this is all embedded in the features since centuries, and
yeah.
if you have to do every solution, change every
Wow,
solution,
yeah.
that's a big job.
That sounds a bit like the Y2K, like the turn of the century moment where we thought, okay,
Yeah.
all the systems had to be gone through, but with Y2K we knew exactly it would be on the 1st of January 2000, and this sounds like something we don't know what the date is. So on one hand, we're so busy in companies with figuring out what AI means to start with that adding
Mm-hmm.
crypto on it, or adding quantum encryption. And that the possibility that that's going to just break all your um, ciphers and just comes in and you've got that it has this all impact is
Mm-hmm.
that sounds like a big worry I would have as a CEO, but I haven't really heard many people in my network to talk about that, except for like the nerds who like to talk about
No,
quantum.
I
So
think
how's that in your world? Is
in
it
my
something we
world,
need to worry
people know
about?
about it, but we are identity and access control people, and we're in a different silo. So
Right, yeah,
I think in the crypto specialist world, there's probably a lot more talk about it. But of course, it should be top of mind of CEOs and CIOs and chief technology officers and chief information
yeah,
security officers there. And I know it's on their desk, but at the time being, I guess that most of them would have their quantum resistance plan for rollout. But yeah, no, I think there could be a bit more awareness as well.
yeah. I think what made it also top of mind for me is in the Netherlands we have a TV program called Eva. It's a talk show, it's a daily talk show, and on a regular basis Alexander Klupping comes there, and
Mm-hmm.
he
Mm-hmm.
knows everything about tech. Basically, he's like a tech guru who talks there. And
Mm-hmm.
this week he was talking about a doom scenario, a possible future of how fast things are going. And of course, it's about AGI. So and not so much about AGI as in this a technology that comes alive and becomes a robot that talks
Mm-hmm.
to us, but much more of where this could go in combination with the geopolitical issues at the moment, and how that might be weaponized. And what was worrying is that the timeline that they're saying, and this is just a possible future, and it's not necessarily the most likely one, but then again, certain things over the last 5 years were very unlikely and became voila, like COVID and other things, and the change of where things are going. So it was quite the next sort of 3 to 5 years looked like it could be like going really fast, and we're already really worried about that.
Mm-hmm.
So adding this to the spectrum, I can imagine if you're a CEO or a CIO at the moment, quantum resistance isn't exactly on top of mind with
Yeah.
everything else. We're still
Yeah.
figuring out how to jump on the AI wagon. Um, and
Mm-hmm.
doing that on a sovereign cloud that doesn't exist. So that's an interesting
Yeah.
concept. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a lot of things converging. There's this quantum resistance that you need to take care for. There's the geopolitical thing. Also, the making chips in Taiwan
Yeah.
and the Chinese part of that. I was in a panel with a guy from China who does cryptography, and he's a security guy. He has his own company. So we had an interesting panel on that, and what would be the impact way. And there are various scenarios, and if they all come together, I'm really worried, and I'm not
Right.
the only one. That's what I see around me as well,
Yeah.
especially when I talk to the um, specialist on each of
Yeah.
these topics.
And now there's of course there's worried, and then there's be prepared. So
Yeah.
with your worry, do you also see ways to be prepared for it, or is this things that we can't prepare for yet?
I think we could prepare for everything, but it would take time. And I think the best thing we can
Mm.
do is doing our daily household jobs properly, because that's where many of the hacks appear these days. There are really intricate,
Yeah.
difficult hacks where they take, we call it advanced persistent threat, where people take 1 year to find out exactly how the internal systems look like. And they take very careful, small steps to plot your complete network, your complete inner workings and all that. and that's
Yeah.
and in a way that you don't notice. Of course, that's the art of
Yeah.
doing this. AI is, of course, counterfeit identities and imitations, and I think fake news is even a bigger threat because it also
Okay.
works on a
Yeah.
political scale and national
Yeah.
scale, and it's not hacking your systems but hacking your people and your thoughts. I think
Oh, that's an interesting
that's even a
perspective.
different
Yeah.
thing. It's not hacking a system,
Yeah.
but it's knowingly and willingly you're made to believe stuff, although you know better. And I think that's because that will
Yeah.
change, make a landslide in voters' opinions. And well, we've already seen a lot of that happening in the UK. There are threats to the Romanian
Yeah.
government. Well, this is, and there's from what I hear through various channels is that. There is also an ideology behind it from the big tech, some of the big tech leaders and the people behind them, that they want they think that actually tech leaders should be ruling governments, and the governments are
Oh,
they're
right. Yeah.
ancient and they should disappear. So,
Yeah.
but that's
Hmm.
does this belong under the topics that a CISO, Chief Information Security Manager, is doing? Well, does fake news resort under that topic or not? But I think we
Right.
should
Yeah.
have a more holistic and more strategic look onto these things, and that's often very difficult in corporates because there's always the operational problem of today that has most budget and
Yeah.
is most top of mind. So I
Yeah.
think that's an imminent threat as well, that we don't look
Yeah.
strategically at all these things together. And that's
Yeah.
something you actually could do if you wanted to.
Yeah. Wow, there's
Apart
a
from the
lot.
operational preparations, of course.
This has
Yeah.
become quite the doomsday conversation. But I'm
Yeah.
glad we're having it because it's important with everything going in AI and everybody's talking about it and it reminds me of like 3 or other waves I've been through, like when we started with the internet and then with the
Yeah.
phones and the apps and the early chatbots. It's although the chatbots were like for me were the start of seeing the AI wave coming. There's a lot of anticipation about how it's going to help and change our world and operational excellence. But
Hmm.
then we all find whenever we're doing digital projects, all the guidance and checks and balances, like the stuff that you're just saying, is always like, oh, it's going to slow us down. But it's like if you don't have this in order, you're opening yourself up for like disaster. So
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then you've
Yeah.
got an automated front door that's open. So that's challenging.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is very much on sort of the company's point of view, and you just earlier mentioned the European identity wallet. I think that's as I understand it, but I don't know too much about it, to be honest. Is there's like the personal, your personal as a person wallet, and probably also something from company to company.
Yeah. Well,
So again, a topic that I haven't heard too many people in the corporate world talk about, but maybe I'm just in the wrong bubble. So can you enlighten me a bit about what that
yeah.
is?
Well, it started out in 2011 by the Stork program, Stork 1, Stork 2, crazy abbreviations. Anyway, the European Union thought that we should have some sort of digital passport-grade identity that we could use cross national borders within the European Union, and that should be a legally valid thing, just like your passport has a legal status, and your digital signature should also have a legal status. And you can't just have 26 member states inventing their own. There should be some rules, like with the passport. If I want to accept the Belgian passport, I'm sure it's in our union, it's approved, it's the yarn and the ink and everything is kind of counterfeit proof. So that's the same what you want to do with your digital identity. If you want it to be accepted across the all EU, you should have some rules and regulations on how it should be emerging and how. Now, the problem is in legislation, you can never prescribe what exact technical solutions there should be, because there could be many that are good enough, and next year they're already outdated, and there could be different ones that you didn't list which are even better. So that's always a problem. Legislation and measuring security, a level of security. You can't measure security. You can estimate the risk. So you can guess now this and this and this is the chance that something bad happens, and this and this is the impact if that happens, and chance per impact, that's your risk score. That's how we do that in security, but we can't measure. Now, okay, I think your security of your laptop today is, I give it a 6 or I give it a 5, because that's also a continuously changing sort of thing, because it erodes when you have security measures. And well, that's one problem in legislation. And but they wanted to try and do that, at least for the digital signature and the digital identity for European citizens. And so the idea was that the government would issue those, and the citizens could use it with the government. Now, in the beginning, they did, but they didn't work with the governments, because you use your government ID only once for your tax registration, maybe, and maybe for some small other things, but there were not many use cases and people didn't really use it. And also there was not so much trust that the other countries trusted each other with each other's digital means. So they geared up in 2018 and 19. And now in the meantime, this whole new identity paradigm has emerged, which is the digital wallet. And if you now know how it normally is, everyone has 5 passwords, 10 passwords. So every party that wants you to log in, they issue your digital identity with a password, and then you can go to their shop with that password and that identity. And you have many, 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 and they're all siloed next to each other. In some cases, you can use one password for multiple accesses. So, for instance, you can log in with your Gmail account to some other services. We call that identity federation. So one identity which gives you access to multiple environments, like one passport goes to multiple countries, and maybe also vice versa, but maybe not. And that means that these countries or those systems have to have agreements with each other that, yes, you can log in here with your Gmail, and there should be digital interoperability and operations and connected systems and all that. So it's still a big jungle. But it is already a bit better because, for instance, internally in corporates, when they connect all these systems to one password, like we did in ING, that makes the life a lot easier for employees instead of having all these separate silos. And then the last,
and the single
newest,
sign-on,
that's the identity wallet, where we don't have all these silos. No, you as a person, you have a personal platform, like you could log in with your Facebook account from Facebook. That's still Facebook in the center. But now you are in the center with a one-person sort of platform, and you decide to whom you connect that. And so if party A wants, let's say the police want to see your driving license, you are opening your wallet is a sort of dashboard. So the police gets to see your driving license, but it's not in your phone, or maybe it is, but you can look at the original sources where of the issuer of that driving license. So the data is the real data is coming from the real source, and you allow party B to see the data that comes from party A, which is a bit more complex because you always have this triangle, you're in the middle, but at least it's intended to be a lot more privacy friendly, and you decide, and it's looking at the real data sources instead of copying everything up and down. And you have one entry point and one dashboard, and it's your personal wallet. Actually, the wallet itself should be neutral, and it's not mandatory to use it. But the EU has now a whole framework where everyone should have, in 2026, should have such a digital wallet from their government. They may or may not use it. Then you can add public and private stuff into their wallet. So it's not for the government only, but also for your university degree, for anything that you need to testify about can be entered into that wallet and can be shown through that wallet. And that's a totally new concept which we didn't have. And I think in this way it's a lot more difficult to have massive attacks, because it's only one wallet. If you hack it, it's only one wallet. Can't do big attacks at scale.
Provided that I'm thinking the wallet place, is that like central then? Because if you hack into the wallet space, then you've got everyone's identity. But I'm sure they thought about that, right?
No, that's not correlated. So your wallet is your wallet, and there is a sort of routing mechanism from all the sources into the sources. but your wallet is on your device. It's not on a central
Yeah.
server, and that's why we call it decentralized identity. So your digital
Oh,
identity is
it's
made up of a group
decentralized.
of
Okay.
attestations from all these sources joined together, and you can, of course,
Right.
tie it to the government identity, that you have your digital passport inside of that, inside of
Yeah.
your use it
Right.
connected to that identity. But one of the other features is that there's no correlation. There's no one apart from yourself who can see where you use this wallet, because it's only you. So
Uh-huh.
it's not
Yeah.
one platform that gathers
Oh,
everything in the
okay.
center, but it's a small platform that only gathers your stuff in the center, and you're the only one who can see all this, the
Yeah.
whole set of things that you use it for.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to still wrap my head around it. So,
Yeah,
because I'm thinking, okay, if I've put this on my phone and I lose my phone, or if I put it on a stick,
yeah,
a USB stick or something, I lose a USB stick. I mean, I've heard the stories about people who have crypto wallets, like
yeah,
with bitcoins on
yeah.
it, and they lose their Bitcoin. They look like USB sticks, and then they lose that thing, and they lose millions. So,
Hmm.
um,
Well, here
I'm
you could,
still trying to wrap
if
my
you
head
lose
around. Of
it,
course, they've thought about it, but
yeah.
I'm sure they've thought about it properly, because I'm not the first one thinking this. But
Hmm.
I still need to wrap my head around, like, how
Yeah.
is this going to
Yeah,
work then, and
it's really a
what are the
paradigm
flaws? And
switch. But if you
yeah,
lose your phone, supposedly that no one can hack into your phone, your PIN code and your facial recognition of your phone, that's still the lock to your wallet, to your
yeah,
device, and then from that you have to go logging into that wallet. So that's still a decisive step, how to open up your wallet. But you could erase every data connection from
yeah,
your wallet. You can erase the whole wallet, and you can reinstall it and get other new data connections. So it's a real-time check of the data source instead of,
right, yeah, yeah,
so yeah. But there are various options. And now one use
right,
case,
yeah. So
for
it's
instance,
like you're, yeah.
if you're working for a company, and
Go
one
on.
company that I worked with has 600 partners. They're all different people, and they come in for 2 weeks and then they're gone. And 600 other companies are their
Yeah,
partners, and they have to do all this onboarding and dynamic workforces. If all of these people have a wallet where their digital identity passport grade would be there, and their certifications and diplomas, and their behavior sort of certificates
yeah,
from the government, as long as it's valid, their driving license, if that's all in their wallet and you can receive that, you don't have to wait for a big paper trail and copy everything and
yeah,
store it, because you could validate that directly from the wallet. So that shortens the onboarding time a lot. It can be done
yeah,
digitally, and of course it's from the real sources, so it's a lot more secure than a fake copy or whatever.
yeah. Yeah, this whole concept of decentralization does sound like it's the way forward, but it
Mm.
is. We've over the last years, we've all, I think, as humans, have used using technology where everything goes on to online. It's about frictionless, and all these companies
Mhm.
own your stuff. So we're very used to centralization, but then you don't no longer own it, so you've become the
Mhm.
product. So it's interesting to start seeing more and more decentralization. And I think
Yeah,
for Europe, that's an interesting one, with like was it 26 countries, or I always forget how many
yeah.
countries we have in Europe, but with so many countries,
Mhm.
basically that is also decentralization, because we are one hub, but of course we're not all one hub. So it's an interesting way that comes from Europe to,
Yeah.
if someone understands how decentralization works, it's Europe. So
Yeah, but I don't
that's
see
interesting.
governments
Oh, right.
explaining it a lot to the citizens. So people, they only explain, yeah, it's more
No.
privacy friendly and it's frictionless and they give a lot of benefits. But the real crux behind it is this total concept switch, that you are your own personal hub and there's no central hub in the middle that can follow you around. And
Yeah.
that's actually,
Yeah.
in if you read, I have read this legislation, it's 80 pages. So you can find it on the Eurlex website. You can read all
Yeah.
about it. It's really quite accessible, a lot of definitions and things. But
Yeah.
it's really about privacy and ease of use and interoperability. And they're looking at
Yeah.
standards and things, and making things more secure and more easy,
Yeah. So
especially.
that
And then the
really
purpose is,
excites
of
me
course,
in
is
a weird
single
way.
digital European Union, the market, single digital market.
Yeah.
That's an effect that they want to have.
That's also, yeah. Yeah, and I'm also somehow I think my mind is trying to link this also to this the with AI now, with agentic AI, with all of these systems also talking to each other, and then it's helpful to sort of also from a how you call that, you feel like a control point of view, if you feel like I'm in charge of my own stuff, because it's becoming so difficult and it's so dispersed, but anything that is really important is on me. So it's not like everything is just gone using my identity and just putting it everywhere and I have lost control. It actually empowers you again to feel in control of what you do and do not want to be used of you. So
actually,
I quite
that's why they call it decentralized identity, but they also call it self-sovereign identity. That's another term, SSI, which is used. Well, of course, you're not totally self-sovereign, because relying parties that want to see your data in order to give you access, they still have their request on what data they want to see from you. And they can, of course, over ask, but they do a lot of things to make that, to reduce those options.
Yeah, that's interesting, because like I'm glad that we're talking, because we only saw each other at that event for a few minutes, and it was just, I think we just mentioned a couple of these abbreviations, and I'm like, we need to talk, because I like to sort of figure out how do you get autonomy back. That was the word I was looking for, and this sounds like it's about autonomy, and again, it's trying to explain this super complex world to people in not so complex language. And then just trying to, in layman's in storytelling, explain how this is getting your autonomy back, and you're in control, you're in the driver's seat of your own life. And it's not like everybody, all these companies, all of these organizations just own part of you, especially with changing dynamics in geopolitics, or where we used to trust technology completely, and we're now seeing, well, with fake news, that you can't trust anything anymore. Then being able to show that this is really you, somehow this is, I think, is a good start for it, that you have an e-wallet or an identity thing that says this is really me, because the fake identity won't have access to my wallet. So it starts to become a way to say,
need to
but
prove,
even if that's happening.
So whenever you're a customer of a bank, you also have to prove that you do the liveness check. So they check whether you're not a talking head or a digital head, but that you're really you, and you're a living and speaking person, and you don't have a counterfeit identity, and your passport is not made up and all that. These checks have become more important with AI being able to cheat. But that's, I think banks, if you look at banks, they're heavily regulated to do all these checks. And also for legal entities, they have to check. And they have to do the check again after X years, or whenever there's a trigger that they don't trust anything. So that's, if you really want to see who are the best sort of looking into all these problems, I think the financial world, because they are so regulated to do all that. They used to be, and that becomes, still they have to apply the same standards with all these more and more difficult circumstances with AI. So.
Oh, that is really interesting. That's just like, I didn't think the financial sector was going to take us to the next level, but they tend to get a lot of slack nowadays. But it's interesting. You're right. They are the backbone of the economic system, and
they are regulated. When I worked in one of the banks, I got a lot of auditors, and they would dive into my systems and find that only one account that was not cleared out clean, or not revoked in time or whatever. And they would really look at that, and that would be noted. And really, that happens thrice or three times per year. And you have to come back with your evidence, prove what you did, why you did it, how you did it, and that it works within a few days after they come in. They come with a whole team. So that, as long as that happens, at least in the European regulated banking sector, that gives me some trust that some people are really looking deeply into that. And they do have the well paid also, but they do have the professional work force that small companies might not have or might not be aware of. And so I think that's so they could, I take them sometimes as a guide for what corporates are doing. And that's not always the hip and nice things, but for security, it's quite robust in many ways.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Interesting. Yeah, so this sort of brings me back to the this podcast, of course, is about conscious innovation. And this kind of loops it back to being conscious about innovation, is really thinking, okay, decentralized, thinking about the paradigm shifts, thinking
Hmm.
about autonomy, and thinking about how is this putting power in the hands of the people, and so that's a nice sort of looping around. So that's
Yeah,
a topic again.
yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, well, if I look at conscious innovation, because that's the title of your podcast, there are a number of things that come to mind here. In my job topic, of course, we have many unidentified people, meaning people who don't have a passport or don't have a formal
mm.
identity. And that's another topic in digital identity, which is a different scale
All
from
right,
operations
yeah,
that I think it's many millions of people, maybe even 1 billion globally, have no formalized digital identity because they never got subscribed, or because their government doesn't take them into account because they're Christians in a Muslim country or whatever. They have no right to
right,
enter into the civil registration system. And I think that digital identity in these wallets could also help there. Um, but I have not been focusing on that so far.
yeah,
But also it's about inclusion, of course, because and
hmm,
diversity and accessibility. And then, of course, we should be careful not to exclude those who are not. Um, I think that an internet connection is not so good at the moment, but yeah, it's moving.
it's
Um,
up and down from time to time, but that's
yeah.
okay.
So the thing is that inclusion also means to include those people who are not digitally
Yeah,
um, educated and who are not
yeah,
who don't have all these things. But I used to live in India, in New Delhi, for a while for one of the banks, doing my job there, and I noticed that at that time, maybe 2008 or 9, everyone had a phone, not yet a smartphone. And at that time, 70% of the people were unbanked. They didn't have a bank because that
yeah,
had too many requirements for them to get a bank account. But they had a lot of digital money and digital things. And also in Ghana, where I was teaching some boot camps on the cybersecurity to high potential professionals. There are many. They have developed a very innovative stuff and peer to peer ways of working with their phones
ah,
that we
yeah,
didn't have yet. And then there's another new thing that's jumping to mind. That's the digital currency. So that's not
yeah,
like Bitcoin, which is also a digital currency, but that's a whole digital coin. But you could have a digital euro. And
yeah,
today we have paper and metal coins and things, and we can
hmm,
register those digitally. So the registry is digital, but the coins
yeah,
themselves are still paper. And the registry only tells you that you have the right for so many physical euros that you can draw
yeah,
from the bank. But so the
hmm,
coin itself, the currency itself, is not digital. But if you look at digital currencies, that would be a euro, which was built in the same way that we built other coins like bitcoins and things. And we're not talking about the technology here. And one of the things that I heard in a
yeah,
payments conference that I visited in Munich not long ago was that in certain countries like India, Brazil, they're all about digital currencies and payments made easy.
right,
And so if you don't only do the registry digitally, but also the coins itself, you transfer the coins as such, the digital coins as such, to the other country, to the other party, and not just making the registry registered, which is a very complex way of paying because that runs through national banks. They call it correspondent banking, which is
yeah,
really
yeah,
high
yeah,
risk and very important and difficult. But if we could get away with that, so these are the new innovations that we're looking at. If you combine that
interesting,
with this
yeah,
decentralized identity stuff and the digital currency, instant payments joined in your wallet, which is also doing your signature and your identity, I
yeah,
haven't got my head around all the use cases that could be emerging there. And then if
ah,
you imagine that a company could have its company wallet issued by the company for its employees, giving it and entering its entitlements in there, and sort of when you do business to business connections with other employees, there are so many use cases that we haven't looked into yet, and I think there's from 2027 on, and already now we can see lot of parties diving into this, but the general audience, or I haven't heard Alexander Klupping so far about this. I heard a few privacy fighters
No.
who think that EU wallet is going to trace you around, but that's just not. If you read the legislation, that's not at all the idea for this wallet. It's just the opposite. It's very
Yeah, it's probably
supposed to
people who are
protect your
against the
privacy.
EU or
But I
against
think,
these things that start
yeah,
telling a story.
yeah.
Yeah, but
But
yeah, sorry, I
there
was
will be a
interrupting.
lot of revolutions, and then if you add AI into the mix, I'm really excited because this is really well, it's an exciting era to live in, as at least from
Yeah,
my professional perspective.
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, that's all we've been talking about your professional side, but and the IAM side
Mm-hmm.
of your life. But knowing you a little bit, I know there's also this completely other life behind you. You mentioned already that you have, was it Greek and Latin and languages, and but you're also you have your own. You're in France at the moment, and you have your own artist residency there as
Yeah,
well, which
that's a nice
if we
word.
talk about the kind of technology conversation we had for other people, that would be a strange combination. But of course,
Hmm?
I know you, so for me it makes perfect sense. But um, how do you marry the two? How is that for you? How is that logical for you to have these
Well,
sort of completely
from
different
the
things?
languages to the banks and reading all the legislation and talking to the whole world in order to push them to give me their data and make nice, very, very creative combinations of pictures and put things easily and do board communication in such a way that they want to listen for this complex matter. That's
Hmm.
very logic. I mean, anyone can understand that. And a difficult text of one Greek philosopher in difficult Greek is not more complex than difficult IT puzzles and things. So, I
Ah,
mean,
yes,
it's the same sort of brain that you need. But I
right.
also have this creative part, and I always, as a child, even I wanted to have my own place, in a place where I could make music, and there could be no neighbors disturbing, and I could select my own company, and I would be master of the house, and
Uh-huh.
no one to guard or to talk to me and tell me off. And also, I was a lot bullied at that time, so I wanted my own atmosphere. Um,
Yeah.
so I have always wanted that, and well, it should be. First, I thought it would be in the Czech Republic because we went there with the students' orchestra. But as I grew up, I got a small cottage in Friesland, which is the northern province of the Netherlands, or really in one of those very small countryside cottages. It's now been sold, but at the end, that was a precursor for what I do now. So I bought this big place with my then partner, but in France, in Burgundy.
Hmm.
He died after 1 month after purchasing the house, and that was a bit nasty
Oh,
disease coming
yeah.
back. So then I thought, okay, I need something. I can't run this whole place on my own. I still have my house in the Netherlands, by the way, so I'm alternating between the two. But
Yeah.
so I needed to invent something, and then I talked to people, and then I got this concept of the artist residency, and I thought, well, it means that an artist is living with me for 1, 2, 3 months, and it's not a holiday person, and it's not a commercial subject, but it's just interesting people around me, and not being alone
Ah,
here, and using this house in the proper way. But
yeah.
I didn't need a business case for that because I already had the house. And but
Yeah.
then a lot of things happened, and I got another partner. And yeah, now I get all my friends, anyone who wants to stay here to do studies, or and mainly people who are writing or studying. Textile artist I had here, which is one of my own interests as well.
Uh-huh.
And
Oh
yeah,
yeah, I remember
musicians. I have
that.
all
Yeah,
the instruments:
sorry.
electric guitars, drum set, piano, anything, Nord even, lots of flutes, clarinets, everything. And so
Oh,
that's all here. So a few weekends back, we had a weekend. My brother brought his whole band, and you can really play loud here because we only have
oh, that's
nightingales
nice.
and
Cool.
yeah, wildlife around, and the swines and whatever. That's interesting. But so
Yeah,
I'm using it for mainly personal, my personal network. But
yeah.
yeah, anyone I don't know would
Oh, that
also
sounds
be
perfect.
welcome. So and I can do my work online mainly because it's mainly strategic advice and preparing presentations and things.
Yeah,
So half my time I live in Utrecht in the center, so I have the whole city life there, and yeah. The rest of
Oh,
the
that's a
time
lovely
I try to
combination.
spend the whole summer
Yeah,
here.
yeah. So the only thing is that the wobbly internet, but I think we got through it fairly well
Yeah,
today anyway. So
yeah.
sorry. So I can't imagine. I can't. What's the right word? It's been almost an hour that we've been talking, and I kind of
Hmm.
was expecting that the time would fly by, and it did.
Yeah.
But just in closing, is there something I didn't ask you, but that's been like burning or bubbling in you that you think, oh, I should definitely share that still?
Maybe some of the inspirations I got. I
Uh-huh.
thought I liked that question. The podcast. Anyone who wants to know more about cybersecurity and wants really juicy stories, and there's hundreds of them. That's the Jack Resider is his name, and he runs a podcast. It's called the Darknet Diaries, and
The
I would
Darknet
really
Diaries. I'll make sure I put it in the comments.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So I'll already send you the link. And then I have three in Utrecht. I have three refugees in my house since 3 years. A mum with two daughters.
Oh
Um,
wow.
she's a cello player, and I was giving them my cello for a professional cellist to use it. So that's why they live with
Mm-hmm.
me now also. But that's why I follow everything about the Ukraine. And there are two podcasts: Ukraine Without Hype, which is one, and the other one is
Uh-huh.
the Eastern Border, which gives you updates on everything around Ukraine and progress of the war and everything. And that's really a topic which is
Wow.
very close to my mind. So
Yeah.
close to my heart, I have to say. So
Yeah.
these are the three podcasts I'm always following. So for anyone
Nice.
who wants to be diving into those topics, especially the Jack
Yeah.
Spider is really in line with the topic of this podcast.
I'm gonna definitely check that one out. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. And and with all of these things, is there anything, if you shared so much, but I forgot to ask, is there anything like lurking on the horizon for you that you're also very excited about?
Well, spending the rest of the summer here and having my harvest of cherries and whatever and walnuts later on and apples and pears and plums and
Uh-huh.
having many guests here and enjoying the summer in France. And then,
Yeah.
well, there are a few conferences that I'm looking forward because those are always meetups with friends from my
Yeah,
perspective.
yeah,
So
I hear you. Yeah, I know
the
that.
next
I know
one
how
is
that
in
works.
Amsterdam Identity Week.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I think that's it.
Well, that sounds like a really nice way to spend the summer and the coming period. So, thank you again. Thank you so much
Thank you
for
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 having
being
me.
on this podcast um, and enlightening me on things I've heard the term about but didn't know the details, and I knew you were gonna tell all the things about. So the e-wallets and sovereign clouds and all of these access things, and I think it really helped me to understand how from a conscious innovation point of view is there's quite a number of things coming to actually um, make our sovereignty as a person, but also just not just persons but broader, um, better, and also just give us autonomy again in a world that is so much changing. We all need a little bit of grip. Um, so, although our talk was very technical and nerdy, which I love, it has also given me a feeling of there's bright stuff on the horizon on making sure we empower people, and that's a great way to sort of go into the weekend here. Yeah, yeah, that would be fun. Yes.